is your authority? Let's start by imagining yourself at a fair-sized public gathering, perhaps a hockey game, at the theater, or maybe even here at church. You're waiting with many others for the event to begin, and someone who looks just like anybody else in the crowd stands up and says, "I say to you, get up out of your seats and go outside to the parking area." Well, you probably start looking at each other and looking at the person and wondering, why should I listen to you? Why should I leave? What's this all about? What if the situation was just a little bit different? What if this time the person was wearing a uniform, and before getting the crowd's attention, he was clearly identified as the fire chief, and he said the exact same words, "I say to you, get up out of your seats and move outside to the parking area." Well, this time I think I would heed the message. In both cases, the person had the authority to tell us to move, but the second time, we were told who the person was, we understand their role, and clearly about their level of authority. Well, in today's gospel, those at the synagogue noticed something different about Jesus' teaching. He was teaching with authority, and his authority was different than that of the scribes. How was it different? Well, when the scribes taught in the synagogue, they were referencing knowledge that they already had from others before them, God's revelation through the prophets and the Torah. And they would claim their authority by saying, "I was taught by so-and-so before me, who was taught by so-and-so before me," back and back to Moses, who was taught by God, the ultimate authority. And Mark's gospel is pretty succinct, though. It doesn't really say why those attending noticed, just that it was different. But if we refer to one of the other gospels, we probably can hear what he was, type of things he was saying. In Matthew's gospel, he says, "But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery in his heart. But I say to you, do not resist an evildoer, but if any one of you strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other. Or, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." These were quite different than just the beginning, or that was taught before them, like an eye for an eye or a tooth for a tooth. Jesus took what was taught before and changed it, raised the bar, made the standard higher, which would be something only someone with authority could do. But just like in our earlier example, when we didn't know the fire chief was the fire chief, many in the synagogue would wonder, what's this all about? That's just the carpenter's son from Nazareth. Why should we believe him? Well, it does come very clear why. And ironically, it was a demon who spoke the truth, who told them who Jesus was when he cried out, "I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Not just a Holy One of God, but the Holy One of God. And to even make it clearer, Christ demonstrates his authority. With a simple command, "Be silent and come out of him," Christ drove the demon out of the man. Those at the synagogue who witnessed the events now know who Jesus is and why he had the authority to say what he said. Authority is defined as the power or right to give orders, make decisions, or enforce obedience. Ouch. That can be quite harsh. Enforce obedience? Let's face it, in many cases, we don't like being told what to do. We like to be in control and be our own boss. We can have a problem with authority, but it might not be quite in the way we think of it. I believe it's not necessarily a problem with authority itself, but to whom we give that authority to. Culture says that the individual is the ultimate authority. I can decide what is right and what is wrong. I can have authority of anything about myself, and even what is truth. It may even be the opposite of yours, and I might even want to change it. Well, today, I'm going to say this way is up. Tomorrow, why can't I say that way? That's not to say that individuals don't have dignity, rights, and responsibilities. We do have our own unique gifts and preferences. I'm only referring to the moral truth. Of course, when it comes to areas in our lives like where we live, what clothes we'd like to wear, what styles of clothes, what food might be right for you and your family, or how we decide to spend the money God has entrusted with us, we have a responsibility to decide on how that's done, but under principles of the moral truth. Like we're all told to help the less fortunate, but how individually we do that is up to us. It may be helping at a food kitchen, maybe helping at an orphanage, or helping the homeless. Now let's go back to the example of the fire chief. Let's also imagine that we know him as a friend, and he knows us. We know he's had our safety and our well-being always in mind, so we trust his judgments. It would make us much easier to follow his direction. Well, God has created us. We are his creation, so rightfully he has authority over us. But we are not just his creation. We are his beloved creation. And through our baptisms, his adopted daughters and sons. So if a designer of a car or a computer knows best how it should be used or maintained, how much more would our God, who created us, loves us, and also lived as one of us, understand what makes us tick and what's best for us? God wants us to know him better and fully trust him. To build trust, he humbled himself to become one of us. He died on the cross and left us with the most wonderful gift of the Eucharist, his body and blood, so we can be strengthened along the way. Even if I don't fully understand what he's asking, that trust will help us follow him, be obedient to his will, and experience true freedom and peace. Freedom and peace. That may seem a little paradoxical. Obedience makes us free. You might think if we have to obey, we're not free. But unlike the authority referenced in my earlier definition, enforced obedience, God honors our free will. We are free to choose to obey or not, yet obedience can give us freedom. Here's an example. If all the drivers on the road are obedient and follow the rules of the road, drive on the right side, stop at the stop signs, stop at red lights, yield to oncoming traffic, etc., we all have the freedom to drive on the road safely and arrive at our destination. Our church teaches we are fully free when we have chosen the good so often, so repeatedly, that it becomes a habit of routine, a way of life, so that choosing evil would not even occur to us as a legitimate option. This is being free, freed from sin. And if we are still tempted to choose sin and evil, we are not completely and totally free. But of course, we won't ever be completely free during this lifetime. But that's our aim and our goal, something we should work toward as we grow in our faith. Why? Because at the end of the long struggle to be truly free lies our ultimate happiness, union with God, our Creator. So freedom is not doing whatever we want when we want, but the ability to be what God calls us to be. And I'll be honest, I know it's easier said than done. I still personally at times have doubts about God's plan for me. But if at those times we take it to prayer, he can remind us that he loves us and has our best interest in mind. I pray that we each grow to know and trust Jesus, that we can come to say, I know who you are, the Holy One of God, and choose him as our ultimate authority.